Our job at DreamWorks is just to tell the very best story that we can.
Technology is critical for the filmmaking process. To us, it's at the core of what we do.
In the beginning of Over the Hedge, we had no idea if we'd be able to come up with the film that we had envisioned technically. We were asking for a lot. I mean, we have furry animals walking through foliage in the woods, in environments that have to have a realistic light bouncing around. We wanted backlit fur gleaming in the morning sun, and we wanted leaves being hit by the sun and reflecting a certain amount of light and light quality. I personally had no idea if we'd be able to pull it off.
Tim Johnson, one of the directors of the film, had a vision in mind to make the computer-generated images look as if they've been exposed on film. There's a certain latitude that film has when it renders reality, and we had to kind of try to duplicate that.
I come from a 2D background, and as a painter, we just paint it in. We just put the light there. And I get onto this film, and they're like, no, we don't just put the light there. It's a very complicated mathematical process. And I was panicked. You know, I thought, how do we do this?
Much like a cinematographer will craft with his instruments and his lights, we do the same thing in the computer. There really is kind of a painterly aspect to what we do, where we literally paint with lights to create the subtle variations in tone and color. And that really is done on a light-by-light basis by the artist. Each character is kind of caringly, lovingly crafted and lit in each shot.
Lighting in this movie is, you know, unbelievable. When we finished our animation on the sequence and we started seeing the lighting dailies come back, you just watch it like...
Over the Hedge is unique to other animated features in that we have more cute fuzzy critters than anybody. There's such an appeal to the characters. They are so lovable, they're so squishy. You want to take them home, you want to bury your face in them because they're so cute.
Morning, Lou. Penny.
Thanks.
Hey, kids.
One of the things that was really fun on the film was to really see what we could do to push the fur tool. The fur tools are essentially a tool that grows little strands of hairs. And we use that, we push that all the way from a porcupine quill to the very fine fur that you see around the animal's faces, like around Hammy's eyes and so forth, which is almost a velvety feel.
Shots like, as they'll call the Hammy transformation shot.
I am a crazy rabbit squirrel.
Where RJ sort of takes Hammy and turns him into Rabbit Hammy. That's like a really difficult technical shot for us to do, with all sorts of changes of hairstyle and fur style happening in one shot.
Hey, it's working!
Behind you!
I know, you're right behind.
Oh!
The porcupines were difficult for every single department. There's a lot of detail there, a lot of quills to be surfaced, and they all have to be groomed appropriately, and they're long, rigid things that our eyes can see. With fur, we get a little grace period in that you can't always see what an individual hair does, but with quills, now every single mistake we make is really visible.
Well, yeah, I'm okay with wazoo food there.
No, you're not. The tail is tingling.
Oh. Animals that hug has probably been our really biggest challenge.
We had this scene, and Andy raised his hand and he said, I noticed there's a lot of hugging in this scene. I was like, is this a problem? Is it too sentimental and sappy for you? Is that the issue? He's like, no, it's just complicated technically to do.
Whenever you have like two characters that are interacting, we basically have to go in there and do lots of work. It was such a problem we actually had to give the animators a quota for how many hugging shots they could do within any one scene. It's a very sort of emotional film, and you know, it's an important part of what the characters have to do, but it made us wince every time another hugging shot came up. It's a lot of work.
Oh, come here. Yeah, that feels good, doesn't it?
One of the things that, you know, we use sort of on the back end to sort of do all the processing is what we call the render farm. It is a huge bank of machines, servers that basically take the artist's instructions and convert them into images.
These characters have 1 million strands of hair on their bodies, and to render that all out just takes time and processing power. We were having to do everything we could to kind of streamline that process so that renders didn't take 3 days to come back, because you need to do your animation, you need to fire off a render, you need it to come back as soon as possible so you're seeing it at the highest resolution to find out if the performance is working, if the glint is in the eye, you know, all that stuff that you can't see in the tool set that we have for animating.
I want my spuddies. I love those things.
We couldn't tell the stories as visually exciting as we are able to do today with the level of innovation and creativity were it not for the partnerships of HP and AMD.
We really don't have to worry a lot about the technical limits. Almost any good idea in story, there is a way for us to execute. What we really pushed on Over the Hedge was the artistic vision, executing that in the best way we can.
We don't have the technical challenges holding us back anymore. We can tell epic stories now, and we can tell stories with a lot of technological complexity. As we move on to newer films, finding ways to take that technology to a level where it's facilitating the story is the real challenge.
At DreamWorks Animation, we really have a mandate to push the state of the art, to really be at the forefront of what is possible. And that requires us to take risks. If we planned on finishing the film with the computing power when we start 3 or 4 years in advance, they wouldn't be state of the art.
What is that? The great thing about Over the Hedge, and I think our future films, is that we are able to now facilitate the story in a way that the directors can tell whatever they want, because we're really capable of anything.
This, my friends, is just the beginning.